understanding. Oh, well, that is all right. An honest excuse is better than no excuse at all. Next time, may I suggest that you leave your belt right next to your bunk so that you cannot miss it. You got that? Good boy. A nearby Marine leaned over to his buddy and whispered in absolute horror, I think he is on some kind of drug. All right, gentlemen. Left face. Forward march, Carter commanded, his voice as soft as a summer breeze. As the men marched rhythmically across the asphalt, the corporal jogged beside Carter. Hey, Sergeant, I do not understand why you're doing all this now. That Taylor dame is not around. You never can tell with her, Carter whispered fiercely without breaking his stride. She can pop up any time, any place, and I am not taking no chances. Left, right, left, hold free. Nice marching, fellas. Very nice. Good, good, very good. Nice, nice, very nice. All right, men, let us keep it moving. First men go through again. Come on, let us go. Good, good, very good. Later that morning, the platoon moved to the dirt fields for combat training. The men were practicing the low crawl, navigating through the thick, suffocating dust beneath simulated enemy fire. It was grueling, dangerous work that required absolute concentration. True to Carter's darkest fears, a cheerful voice rang out across the training field. Sergeant Carter, Miss Taylor is here. Carter spun around, dusting off his uniform rapidly, and plastered the horrifying smile back onto his face. Why, Miss Taylor? It is so nice to see you again. Welcome aboard, ma'am. Sergeant Carter, I came to see Gomer, Amby announced, clutching her purse tightly, entirely unintimidated by the military maneuvers happening around them. Well, we're glad to have you. And in fact, you are just in time to see one of our exercises. Thank you. Where's Gomer? She asked, shielding her eyes from the bright sun. He is right out there. See, he is the one crawling. Carter pointed proudly toward the dirt course. Oh, yes, I see. Who? Gomer, I am here. She waved her hand vigorously. Down in the dirt, Gomer heard the familiar voice of home. He popped his head up, breaking his concentration completely. Hey, Aunt B! He shouted back, waving his hand high in the air, completely forgetting the live training grenade that had just been tossed onto the field for the drill. Carter's heart stopped. The fake smile shattered instantly. The pure, unadulterated instinct of a United States Marine sergeant took over. He sprinted forward, his face contorted in absolute terror for the life of his man. Oh, you knucklehead! Well, you numbskull, you lame brain. How could you pull such a boneheaded stunt? Of all the knucklehead things to do, what if that had been a live grenade? Carter screamed at the top of his lungs, dragging Gomer back down into the dirt, his voice echoing off the distant mountains. Gomer blinked, the realization of his dangerous mistake washing over him. Well, I am sorry, Sergeant Carter. I do not know how in the world I could have done a thing like that. Well, I do. It is because you are stupid. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Carter roared, his chest heaving as the adrenaline pumped through his veins. Amby rushed over, her face pale with absolute shock and fury. What is the matter? Why are you shouting like that? Do not tell me you are angry with this poor boy again. Carter opened his mouth, remembering the television show, The Colonel and His Precious Stripes. He tried to dial it back. Oh, no, I am not angry. Not really angry. But Aunt B, he has got a right to be angry. I did a very wrong thing, Gomer interrupted, standing up and dusting off his knees, his face solemn. That is right, pal, you did. Naughty, naughty, Carter tried to say in a sweet, condescending tone, though it sounded like he was choking on a lemon. Sorry, Sergeant Carter. I really am sorry. Sorry? You are sorry? Oh, that is good. That is very good. I am talking to him real nice. Am I not, Miss Taylor? Nice and soft and kind, Carter said, turning to Amby with desperate, pleading eyes. Well, it is an improvement, she sniffed, crossing her arms. That is an improvement. Uh-huh. And this is the kind of sergeant you would like your friend Gomer-Pyle to have? Carter asked softly. As a matter of fact, I would, she declared proudly. Carter looked at her, then looked at Gomer, then looked out over his men. A profound realization hit him. He could not do it. He could not pretend to be a weak, coddling leader, not even to save his own career. Lives were at stake. The discipline was the only thing standing between these boys and disaster. He straightened his back, his pride returning in full force. Well, I cannot do it. I am not that kind of sergeant, and I never will be, Sergeant Carter. And, Pyle, if you think I'm going to drop this, you are nuts. I'm going to have you down there digging ditches and doing push-ups until you are blue in the face. You got that? He bellowed, the majestic roar of his voice returning to its glorious, terrifying volume. Well, I never, Ampy gasped, clutching her pearls. Oh, Gomer, you poor dear. Gomer looked at the furious sergeant, then turned to his beloved aunt, a look of profound, mature understanding crossing his innocent face. Really, Aunt B? There's a few things about Sergeant Carter and the Marines that you ought to know. That evening, the atmosphere in the barracks recreation room was thicker than the humidity outside. The entire platoon was gathered around the small, glowing box of the communal television set. Sergeant Vince Carter paced nervously in the back of the room, chewing his fingernails to the quick. His career was effectively over. He had chosen to be a Marine over being a politician. And now he was going to pay the ultimate price on live broadcast television. Well, we will have another interesting guest after this word from our sponsor. The television announcer smiled brightly. Hey, Pyle, are you sure your Aunt B is going to be on television tonight? One of the privates asked, munching on some popcorn. Well, she said she was. She called me from the hotel. Right before she left, Gomer replied, his eyes fixed faithfully on the screen. Hey, you guys cool it, Carter ordered nervously. Well, has she been on yet? No, not yet. Sergeant Carter, if you want to sit down, you can have my chair, Gomer offered kindly. No, thanks. I will stand, Carter muttered, crossing his arms and leaning against the wall like a man awaiting his execution. The screen cut back to the brightly lit studio. Johnny Clark smiled his winning $1 million smile. Our next guest is a lady I had on the radio program yesterday when we were interviewing out at camp. Henderson. She had some very interesting comments about her visits at the camp. I invited her down tonight to tell us a little more about them. How about a nice, warm welcome from Miss B. Taylor from Mayberry, North Carolina? Hi. The studio audience applauded politely as Ampy walked gracefully onto the set, looking immaculate in a lovely evening dress. Miss Taylor, I wrote this back here for you. There you are, Johnny said, guiding her to a comfortable armchair. Well, here we go, Sergeant, Corporal Boyle whispered grimly. Yeah, Ma, Barker. Carter grumbled, preparing for the absolute worst. Now, Miss Taylor, when we talk. Carter could not hold it in any more. He stepped toward the television, addressing his men. Look, I want to set the record straight. What I said and did was what I thought was right. And no civilian is going to make me change my mind, he declared fiercely. Yes, I did, Amby was saying on screen. Quiet, Pyle. You cause enough trouble, Carter snapped, shushing the room so he could hear his impending doom. Your complaint centered mainly around his sergeant, Sergeant Carter, Johnny prompted, leaning forward eagerly. That is right, Amby nodded firmly. You said he was unfair and unreasonable. You remember telling me that? Yes, I remember. Now, would you mind telling our audience your experience with his sergeant? Well, when I met Sergeant Carter. The audience, she paused, looking out into the studio lights, gathering her thoughts. Well, when I met Sergeant Carter, he just impressed me as a terribly ill-tempered man. He was shouting and yelling at my friend and ordering him to do things that were completely unnecessary. Acting like a tyrant. In other words, Johnny supplied helpful, dramatic phrasing. Yes, when I went back today, the same thing happened again. There he was shouting and yelling and screaming in a way that I thought was entirely